What if your government actually gave you poison to drink? I mean, not by accident, on purpose. And get this, they did it just to save a little bit of money. It sounds like the plot of some dystopian movie, doesn't it? But unfortunately, this isn't fiction. Back in 2014, that exact nightmare became reality in Flint, Michigan. We're talking about an entire American city. 100,000 people just going about their daily lives, completely trusting the infrastructure right beneath their feet. And here is the most staggering part. That number includes 9,000 children. They literally went to their sinks, turned on the tap, and drank lead. Today, we're looking at the true story of an American town that was poisoned by its very own water supply.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the anatomy of a disaster, breaking down exactly why the Flint water poisoning happened.
Section 1. A city in debt. So how did this all start? Well, Flint was facing a massive $25 million debt, and the state essentially ordered them to cut costs. Which brings us right to Section 2, the $5 million decision. Emergency managers had to slash the budget, and they had to do it fast.
The sheer brutal math of this whole situation basically comes down to this. For 50 years, Flint had been buying clean, treated water from nearby Detroit. But, it was pretty expensive, about $13 million a year. So, in April 2014, these emergency managers decided to just switch Flint's water source to the local Flint River. Why? Because it would save them $5 million a year. But here is the massive, glaring problem. The Flint River was heavily polluted. I mean, for an entire century, factories had been dumping their industrial waste right into it.
Now, officials swore to the public, hey, it'll be fine, we're going to treat it. But they absolutely didn't. On April 25, 2014, they flipped the switch. Almost immediately, this brown, frankly disgusting, foul-smelling water started pouring out of people's taps. And when residents understandably started panicking and complaining, the city's official response was just dismissive. They literally said, it's safe, just boil it. But as we now know, that was a complete lie.
So why exactly was boiling it a lie? Let's move into Section 3, the toxic chemical reaction.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial thing to understand here is this chain reaction happening in the plumbing beneath the city. The untreated Flint River water was incredibly corrosive. So, step 1, this highly corrosive river water flows into the city's aging pipes. Step 2, because it wasn't treated with the proper anti-corrosive agents, which is standard practice, by the way, the water physically ate away at the inside of those old lead pipes. And step 3, pure lead leached directly into the water supply and poured right into people's homes. And here's the thing. You cannot boil lead out of water. In fact, if you boil it, the water just evaporates and actually concentrates those toxic heavy metals even more.
Within a matter of months, this toxic reaction turned into an undeniable physical toll. It was literally impossible to hide. Residents were breaking out in these severe rashes. People's hair was falling out in clumps. Entire families were coming down with mysterious illnesses. And yet, incredibly, officials just dug in their heels. They kept insisting the water, quote, meets federal standards.
But, you really can't argue with hard medical data forever. In September 2015, a local pediatrician named Dr. Mona Hanna-Attisha decided to just test the blood of the children in Flint herself. And her findings were terrifying. She proved that lead poisoning in the city's kids had actually doubled since they switched the water. So she bravely took this data public and blew the whistle.
And how did the state respond? Well, instead of immediately rushing in to fix this toxic water crisis, they attacked the doctor. State officials went on the record and branded her an unreliable alarmist. They deliberately chose to take a defensive posture rather than actually protect their own citizens.
This willful blindness leads us straight into Section 4, the government cover-up. Because as emails later proved, government officials actually knew the truth way back in 2014. Just look at this list of actions. Behind closed doors, they were literally joking about the brown water. They intentionally hid the terrible water test results from the public. And when an EPA worker tried to sound the alarm and warn them in 2015, they completely ignored him, and eventually, he was pushed out and resigned. They actively silenced the experts. When you look at this timeline, it really puts the whole cover-up into perspective, right? So the water was switched in April 2014. Dr. Hanna-Attisha goes public in September 2015. But it wasn't until October 2015 that the government finally stepped up and admitted, yes, the water is poisoned.
That is 18 agonizing months of total denial while an entire city was drinking toxic water. And 18 months is an absolute lifetime for a developing brain. Which brings us to Section 5, the permanent aftermath. To really grasp the gravity of this situation, we have to understand what lead actually does to the human body, especially to kids. Lead exposure in children causes permanent brain damage. It leads to severe learning problems and significant behavior issues. This isn't just some temporary stomach bug you can fix with a round of antibiotics. The damage done to those 9,000 kids is locked in. It's completely irreversible. When we finally tally up the toll of this disaster, the numbers are just staggering. The state faced $600 million in lawsuits. 12 people tragically lost their lives to Legionnaire's disease, which was linked directly to that untreated water. And of course, 9,000 kids exposed to irreversible neurological damage. And remember, all of this was triggered just to save $5 million on a spreadsheet. Now, the political theater that followed really did very little to help. In 2016, President Obama visited Flint and famously drank a glass of filtered Flint water on TV to try and prove it was safe. But for the vast majority of people living there, it absolutely wasn't. And while the governor did eventually apologize and criminal charges were initially filed against 15 different officials, most of those charges, they were eventually just dropped. Which brings us to the reality of the present day, in 2026. While some pipes have indeed been replaced over the years, the city of Flint still heavily relies on bottled water. Just imagine being a parent and being told that a basic utility provided by your own government might permanently harm your children. Because of that, the trust between the citizens of Flint and their government is entirely, completely gone.
Flint wasn't some core developing nation. It was a major American city. And it wasn't destroyed by a sudden, uncontrollable natural disaster either. It was severely harmed by a calculated, deliberate decision to save $5 million, which leaves us with this final, really essential question to think about. What happens when the people in power forget who they actually serve? Let us know what you think about all this in the comments below, and please share this explainer so the world doesn't forget. Stay curious.